Hello, everyone. Hello, Dinara.
Hi, James.
Excellent. So let's continue. So today we're going to be looking at the exciting world of idioms. Today we will get started. So we're going to look at some animal idioms today. So having a look at the meaning, the usage, and the origin of some of these common English idioms. Let's get started with the first one. Bark is worse than your bite. So what do you think that might mean, Dinara? So bark is worse than your bite. If someone says their bark is worse than their bite.
In Kazakh, we have quite similar saying. If we translate it into English, it says that words, they go through your bones, like straight to your heart, while stick only goes through your meat. Beating is sometimes words, they can hurt much more than beating.
Yes.
I suppose.
One of the sayings that's, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But it's not true, of course. So it's just what people say to try and say, well, it's not that. So if a dog's bark is worse than its bite, then it barks a lot. It sounds quite scary, but the actual bite is not that severe. Yeah. So, and though our neighbour is forever shouting at us, Larry says his bark is worse than his bite. That's an example. So apparently, what this comes from, the saying originates in the 17th century when dogs kept as pets simply guarded houses, and a dog that barked really fiercely always sounded like he would bite a bit off you. But if the dog didn't really bite, then it was said that his bark was worse than his bite. So yeah, this is when you sound, you can use the opposite as well. Sorry, and I think that's where I got slightly confused. You can use it the opposite. His bark is, so if the bark is worse, if the bark is worse than the bite, then it means it sounds scarier than it is, so, but you can also reverse that. So the bite was worse than so you could say the bite isn't worse. The bark is worse than the bite, so also work.
I see. So it means that something looks more scary than it is, right?
Sounds scarier than it is, yeah.
So, for example, I'm scared of a certain exam, and in this case, I can say bark was worse, and I passed it easily. Yes. That exam, for example, maths exam, and then after I got my results, I can say bark was worse than its bite. No?
Yes, exactly. So that's that's precisely it. Exactly. So bark is worse than your bite. Then the next one.
Yes.
Birds of a feather flock together. This one is, well, people who have common interests or habits are usually together. So birds of a feather, so similar birds, go together. Exactly. So to give an example with the usage, so all my friends have the same interests and like to go hiking. I guess we are like birds of a feather flocking together. This is a saying that has been used by man for more than 2,000 years. If you observe carefully, you will find that birds of one kind always fly together. You never see a crow flying with pigeons, do you?
True. The question, do you usually use those phrases regularly?
Yeah, it's quite common, that one. I mean, Birds of a Feather actually was like a sort of a sitcom about, is also well known as a sitcom because it was a sitcom about three sort of women in their 40s and 50s in the UK. So Birds of a Feather, you might get confused for the sitcom, basically. But I would say out of the two, bark is worse than its bite is more common than birds of a feather flock together. But you hear both. Yeah.
Cool.
But in many respects, it's more of a saying than an idiom. So it can be used as an idiom, but it's almost more of a saying, if that makes sense.
And of course, I have a question. What's the difference between saying and idiom?
So a saying is, so I think idiom is like a short partial phrase that you might use in a sentence, whereas a saying is more, I meant more a proverb.
I see.
So a proverb would be, so for example, a stitch in time saves nine is an example. So if you do something in time, if you repair something in time, then you won't need to repair it as much later
on.
Yeah,
true.
That's an example of a proverb, I guess.
James, I have a frank question to you. Do you agree that people who use proverbs in the idioms in everyday usage, we can say that their level of the language is quite high, no matter it's a foreign language for them or their native language?
Generally, yes, I would say so. Because it shows an ability to, a certain degree of being a wordsmith, so as in being understanding different nuances of the language, So I think it is a good sign. Exactly. Let's carry on. Black sheep of the family.
It's common, yeah.
Yeah, this is quite common as well. Exactly. I mean, it's often shortened to black sheep. Yeah, so as in black sheep. So the most different or odd one out in a group or a family. Okay. As David does not study hard like his other brothers, he is considered the black sheep of his family. So the color black is associated with evil, and a sheep that is all black is rare, especially in a herd of all white sheep. Exactly. So this is often shortened to a black sheep. Or somebody saying, I'm the black sheep, so a black sheep in a white herd is definitely the odd one out. So in the early 1800s, shepherds thought the black sheep scared off the white ones and therefore favored them less. Slowly, this saying came to refer to the least favored person in a family or group.
I see. I suppose I remember in my childhood it was very difficult to understand this idiom because in Kazakhstan, our sheep, they are black and brown.
Yes, of course.
They are black and brown, and for us, like, what?
Yeah. So well, ours are all white. So almost all of them are white, basically. So white with black faces, but but white wool.
And I'm very curious. The students write down analogs to the idioms you hear in this video, and please write down their translation. I absolutely love idioms and proverbs. I think that they are the first step to being able to read and understand poetry, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I suppose herd means a lot of sheep together.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's the collective noun. And obviously collective nouns are another interesting story because they can be all kinds of things. But herd is the most common for groups of herbivores, basically. So as in herd is, but you might hear it, for example, with elephants. You can hear it with cattle, with sheep. It's used in many different herbivores in particular. The next one is bull in a china shop.
The first time I hear it.
It's kind of self-explanatory, this one is a bit self-explanatory because you wouldn't want a bull in a china shop. So as in because obviously china is very expensive and it's very delicate, it's fragile, so these different plates and stuff like that.
What does china shop mean?
Yeah, so as in china shop, porcelain, exactly. It's like an expensive form of porcelain, often comes from China. So it's like really sort of delicate porcelain that's usually very expensive. So that comes from China. So and the meaning of this is to be extremely clumsy. So whenever Roy is in the kitchen, he breaks something. So his mother says that he's like a bull in a china shop. Yeah, so as in, exactly. Okay, so bulls are clumsy creatures, large and graceless. When they move, they always knock things out of their way. This idiom found its way into speech when dishes and plates were made out of china. Porcelain, so were introduced in Europe in the 16th century. Imagine if a bull got into a china shop, what havoc would it cause?
Okay, great. Now I know. Interesting. I didn't know that porcelain shop is called china shop. Great. Yes. And very interesting that they write, in this case, they write the word China with a small letter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's called China because that's where this form of porcelain was coming from. So they called it China. So obviously, so it's something that's named after the country, as opposed to the other way around. It's not the country named after the porcelain, so it's exactly. So the next one, a leopard cannot change his spots.
So maybe it means that people change rarely.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So a leopard cannot change his spots. Well, it means so a leopard cannot change its spots. So that's someone can't change their own nature, or something can't change its own nature. So that is how it is, because obviously a leopard has spots and it will always have spots, because that's what its coat looks like. So we cannot change the nature of things. So the usage, Mr. Wilson could not yell at Fred for stealing his mangoes because he is a very gentle and forgiving person. This instance portrays that Mr. Wilson was like a leopard who cannot change his spots. He is just very gentle and forgiving. That's what happens. So and then the obvious origin is, have you seen the spots on a leopard? So the saying originates from the Holy Bible.
Oh, great. Interesting.
So in the book of Jeremiah, there's a few that come from the Bible, absolutely. So there is a verse which says, can the Ethiopian change his skin, or can the leopard change his spots? Which means that the basic nature of things does not change, even with changed circumstances. Okay, so as in crocodile tears. So false or fake tears, this means. So Peter fell down but did not hurt himself. He cried crocodile tears only because he wanted his dad to buy him something. Yeah, this one's quite common, basically. So because there was this, as in crocodiles, I think they do sort of
cry,
water their eye. Yeah, it is a form of crying, but it's not because they're sad. As in, I think it's just to lubricate the eye, basically. So just make sure that it's working okay. The origin of this one is, have you ever seen a crocodile crying? I'm sure you haven't. Therefore, anyone who is crying crocodile tears is just pretending. The ancient Romans used this expression freely, and renowned writers like Lord Tennyson and William Shakespeare used this expression to mean insincere sorrow. Okay,
and I think in every let's study maximum 6 idioms in each our video, obviously, because I think it's
it's more basically it's better for them to be accessible, of course.
And see you guys in our next episodes. Please write origins of any of idioms or in your language. You can write in original and translate into English. We are very curious, and as usual, like our videos, YouTube will share and show these videos to more people who study English. And to see you in our next episodes, you can write us on WhatsApp, and we'll try to help you, especially with improving your speaking level. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. So bye-bye, everybody.